Hey, how's it going, Nostalgia? This is Ryan from the Nostalgia Factor here back again with another review, and this time we're going to be covering a classic on the PlayStation, the original Ratchet and Clank.
Final step, attach robotic ignition system. Thank you for using help desk technology.
Ratchet and Clank was developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive Computer Entertainment of America back in 2002, and this game defined one of the most popular PlayStation platformers of all time, alongside the likes of Jak and Daxter, which is a game that I'll be covering at some point here on the channel as well, since I have played both games. The real question here at this point is, Ratchet and Clank is a very well-known platforming series that has done a lot of innovation, not just for the genre, but for its own game. So the question is, does this original game hold up at all, considering how the other games look and control a lot better than this one?
You can interrupt help desk messages by pressing the triangle button. To disable help desk messages, please select options from your pause menu.
The main plot of Ratchet and Clank involves Ratchet, a Lomax alien, one of the last of his species, running into a little alien known as Clank, who is a defective robot from an unknown kind of factory facility. The main goal of these guys is to stop Chairman Drek, an evil alien who likes to destroy and rebuild planets for profit, alongside a person that you don't know is a villain partway through the story, Captain Quark, who is working alongside Drek in order to keep his fame throughout the galaxy as a famed superhero. So really, Ratchet and Clank are teaming up to stop this Drek guy from destroying a bunch of planets and essentially profiting off of the destruction. The story in this game is really simplistic in a lot of ways. There's a bunch of different cutscenes as you travel from planet to planet in order to further stop this guy across multiple different places. And I really do like it. It's charming, it's humorous. Ratchet and Clank are a great duo. They have a lot of comedy together. It's a lot more simplistic though in this game. The story is more straightforward. Well, you have to backtrack to planets in order to progress further when you have certain gadgets or certain weapons and whatnot to go to certain areas to complete the game. I will say that it is really simplistic in some areas. It's a lot more straightforward with the cutscenes and whatnot. But it does have its charm and it has its humor here and there, and I really do like the story in it. So, I mean, overall, the story isn't, like, amazing for a platformer, but I will tell you it's more innovative than what a lot of other games have done. My gosh, though, the visual fidelity in this game is really great. Traversing from planet to planet, seeing the massive cities that you go through, seeing the murky swamp-like planets that you traverse with the different monsters and the different waters and bogs that you come across, through the different like racetrack areas where they have like the great backgrounds, the great motion blur effects, the great just everything really about this game just screams quality when it comes to not just the planets themselves that you go through being all unique in their own ways with their own set pieces, but also just the PS2 pushing almost to the max, it looks like, in a lot of places, trying to render out as much detail as possible, especially for the early 2000s when the PS2 was relatively had a lot of shovelware on it at that time. So the graphics in this game look really good, and the music as well. Well, there's no tracks that outright will scream at you other than like the main theme that will make you want to remember it after you play the game. A lot of the tracks work really well atmospherically, though, for while you're going through the different planets and just throughout the game as a whole. And I really do like the music as a whole overall. So all in all, the environments and the music, really good. Another thing that sets Ratchet and Clank apart is the insane arsenal that you have, and as well as the controls. The controls for a platformer are one of the most important things that you could ever have in a game like Ratchet and Clank, but the controls work really well. They're very weighty, they're very responsive, they work very well for what they are. You can also upgrade the different parts of traversing the terrain throughout the entire game. With Clank, who is Ratchet's assistant basically, he uses his helicopter top in order to go over different platforms. You could even get a jetpack later on that you can zoom across the different parts of the world in order to traverse a lot of different hazards, so that works really well as well for an upgrade system, which is very impressive in this game. But aside from the controls working really well, albeit without a few different things, which I'll get into here in a second, the other main thing in this game that Ratchet and Clank is known for are the bizarre and just really amazing looking weapons. I gotta admit, they all have their uses: multi-blasters, giant cannon-like shotguns, giant plasma cannons. It's amazing the variety that you have in this game. If you want to use such as a pistol in order to take them down, if you want to use a giant shotgun-based weapon, if you want to use a freaking cannon, or Ratchet's standard weapon, which is a wrench, which may not seem as well in comparison to other weapons like the Rhino, which literally does stand for rip you a new one. This weapon is very costly to get in the game, and it takes a ton of bolts, which is the currency that you're going to be using to upgrade and buy your arsenal throughout the duration of the series. So I recommend that if you want to get it, you better grind it out for a long while. Of course, by the time you get to that point, you don't have to get it in order to beat the game. The game's really simplistic in a lot of ways and easy, which isn't a bad thing per se, but if you're looking for a challenge, some areas might do it for you, but overall the game's not really difficult. But overall, the arsenal and the controls work very, very well in this game too, which are two key components not just for a Ratchet game, but for a platformer. The two main problems that I do have with Ratchet and Clank, though, are one, the control fidelity with some parts of the game. One thing that I really don't like about the game, period, in concern not just with the controls, but with the game in general, are the hoverboard races. Now, these are required for some parts of the game in order to win certain gadgets, in order to advance to other planets, to progress the story. Oh my gosh, the controls are very finicky, it's very hard to land on the grind rails, it's really hard to control, it's very, very weighty, it's very, very floaty, if that. It's just the controls aren't very responsive, they're not very fluid, they don't work very well in terms of navigating around the track safely without careening over the edge or being knocked behind by another person, because if you don't get first place, then you're not going to get what you need. So, and it will take you a while if you're not very familiar with the game. So I do have a big problem with that. Another problem that I have with too is like the excess content they try and shove in your face. There's golden bolts that you can find around the worlds in different parts, and if you get enough golden bolts, you can win like specialized golden weapons, which sounds good on paper. But number one, the bolts aren't very good to get. They're very hard, and they're very hard to find, for one. And the platforming challenge that you're going to be encountering, you're going to be dying a lot more than you're going to be rewarded with the bolts. So really, it just doesn't work very well as like finding them in the first place. But another major thing with it is the weapons that you end up unlocking when you get the golden bolts, you still have to purchase. And if you thought the Rhino was a bunch of money, they may not be as much in comparison, but oh my gosh, it will take you a lot of grinding in order to buy the weapons that you spent so much time getting the bolts for in the first place, the gold bolts. So, all in all, I think like the excess content they tried to push in, as well as some controls and definitely the races, bogged the game down a little bit for some parts. If the races, for example, weren't required to do, and if it's just something you wanted to do for fun, then I wouldn't have as much of a problem. But since it's a huge story progression point, especially partway through the game, it doesn't really help the game. All in all, though, Ratchet and Clank is a very good game. It definitely has a lot of different cases where you can tell it's the first game in the Ratchet and Clank series, but as a platforming experience and as a game in general, it's very good. The environments look really well for the PS2, the music is very atmospheric, the story is quirky and lasts just long enough to where you enjoy it. The insane weaponry and options that you have to up your arsenal, so to speak, which I know is a name of the game in the series, but the races, some control issues, and of course the excess content kind of bogs it down a bit. But all in all, though, Ratchet and Clank is a very solid game, and I recommend you guys go and check it out if you want to start getting into not just the series, but the platforming genre as a whole. And that's going to be it for today's review, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you guys enjoyed, give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys want to catch more videos like this in the future, and comment your thoughts on Ratchet and Clank down below from wherever you've heard it, or if you've personally played it yourself, let me know your thoughts on that as well. With all that in mind, guys, this has been Ryan from The Nostalgia Factor saying, keep on gaming.